Over these last days, it's been suggested that we have to become divine psychologists, but we cannot become divine psychologists until we become divine scientists, physicists, and alchemists. That is to say that we've learned and understood the workings of existence, learned and understood the laws of existence, and learned and understood the chemistry of existence. But if we ask ourselves, what is psychology? The dictionary tells us that to study psychology is to study the mind and nature of humans and animals, and is self-evident when it says psyche, psychology. But we can also ask ourselves, what is divine psychology? And in the way of stories, to suggest to you that it's the like of Mullah Nasruddin, Birbal, the advisor to King Akbar, and Latif the thief, who are exemplary of what a divine psychologist is. Let's see if you would confirm this in simple stories about them. The first is that story about Mullah Nasruddin, who was invited to debate philosophy, a very deep philosophical subject, with a group of pundits. But during the course of the day, he was unable to convince them of his point. But the next day, when they were all due to meet, Mullah Nasruddin was seen to be riding back and forth in front of the doorway of the venue on his donkey, facing the rear end of his donkey. So when the pundits had come together, they asked him, "Mullah, why were you riding back and forth in front of the doorway, facing the wrong way on your donkey?" And Mullah Nasruddin said, "Could it not be that I was facing the right way and my donkey was facing the wrong way?" And Birbal, of course, was this advisor to King Akbar, known for his ways of solving any problems that were brought before King Akbar. But before Birbal became Big Birbal, he was a very young country boy called Ramesh Das. And the beginning of Birbal's story is the day when King Akbar, who loved to go around testing his people, asked for a portrait to be made of himself and he would give a bag of gold to whoever depicted the greatest likeness of him. So he travelled from community to community until he came to the small village where Ramesh Das lived. And Ramesh Das, like the number of the others of that community, lined up with their portraits that they'd made of King Akbar. But when it came to Ramesh Das's turn, he handed the king a little parcel which the king had to unwrap. But when he did and the king held it up, he found that it was a mirror. And King Akbar said, "Well, I must say that yes, this is a perfect likeness of me, even though it's not a portrait of me. But young man, I give you my ring, and when you have grown, bring this ring to my palace. I may just be able to find a place for you amongst my court. And the last story is the story of Latif the thief. And Latif the thief, on one of the very rare occasions when he was caught, he was a very elusive thief, he was hauled before a panel of judges. And he stood up before the court and he said, before these judges make judgment about me, I ask that they each be given a piece of paper and a pencil and answer the question, what is bread? So duly the pads and pencils were brought, and each of these learned judges gave a different answer to what bread was. One said it was the staff of life, the other said it was, wheat and another said it was flour and water and yeast and so on. And so Latif stood up and he said, if these learned judges cannot even decide what is bread, how could they possibly agree on whether I am guilty or not? Divine psychology. If we explore this at this level, would you agree or not that these anecdotes indicate to us what it is that we could say divine psychology is, and what it means for us? And recognizing and accepting that we cannot claim to be divine psychologists until indeed we have mastered the ways of existence. The three being just that, the ways of existence, and psychology taking us to another level of knowledge, experience, ability. What say you about these three stories, and suggesting that these characters and what they bring in the stories of their interactions with life indicate that they are indeed divine psychologists? And if so, what does it mean for us? If psychology is to explore the psyche of humans and animals, what are we exploring now as we endeavor to claim being divine psychologists? What say you? What say you?
has passed through the experiences and of understanding but not being bound by the collective psychology, and one enters into the divine psychology once one is no longer bound by that conditioned mind. And from that place, one then becomes a divine psychology, understanding the play, and actually can create, without being the doer, spontaneously those situations that invite so-called others to be freed up, or invite circumstances to pop out of that conditioned